Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City salutes the best of '87.
I just moved in next door. Could I borrow a Diet Pepsi?
Sure.
Be right with you.
When you go all out for taste, the taste to go out for is Diet Pepsi.
You okay in there?
Here's your Diet Pepsi.
Thanks. I hope it wasn't too much trouble.
No trouble at all.
Diet Pepsi, the choice of a new generation.
We'll show you the Royals in action and tell you about the best junior golf program in the country.
The polar bear's world is essentially the land of ice and snow and occasionally magnificent scenery. Several thousand miles to the east of Alaska lie the Svalbard Islands, far to the north of Norway. The protection of Svalbard's wildlife, including its polar bears, is the responsibility of the Norwegian government. The climate and terrain of the Svalbard Islands varies dramatically from east to west and tells us something about the nature of polar bears. Eastern Svalbard is very barren. This is the part the polar bears frequent. The offshore waters, which are fed by the cold currents of the Barents Sea, are rich in marine life. So this area provides prime habitat for seals and therefore bears. During the summer months, when the pack ice breaks up, they spend considerable time swimming as they travel around their hunting grounds. Some become temporarily landlocked, forsaking the open pack ice to hunt seals deep in the fjords and inlets where patches of solid ice remain. Western Svalbard is less harsh, and the bears ignore it because the coast here is fed by the warm transatlantic currents. Many more species of wildlife can survive here, including animals like the small Svalbard reindeer. On the very edge of the frozen Arctic, a fragile ecosystem has established itself. Bird life is abundant. In summer, little auks nest in colonies on the inland cliffs and slopes. Western Svalbard also has a more diverse flora, including a number of flowering plants at the northerly limit of their growth. Until recently, polar bears suffered extensive hunting in many parts of their range. In Svalbard alone, an average of over 300 were killed annually, most of them with the use of the set gun, which the bear triggered itself by pulling on the bait attached to the gun. The evidence can still be seen, but in 1970, Norway outlawed the use of these traps. 3 years later, polar bear hunting in Svalbard was banned altogether. Today, teams from the Norwegian Polar Institute visit Svalbard waters in the research vessel Lance. During the summer months, the ship is used as a base for scientific studies of all kinds. As a part of a continuing survey of natural resources, these scientists are cataloging the rich and abundant offshore wildlife. Although thousands of miles from Alaska, the animal life here is very similar to other parts of the Arctic, both on the surface and below it. Research on polar bears is high on the list of the Institute's priorities. The pack ice here contains one of the largest populations in the world, but more knowledge of the movements of these bears is vital if future management and conservation is to be effective. Where do the bears go? And how far do they travel in their wanderings over the ice? Norwegian scientists have developed techniques that utilize modern space technology to find the answers to these questions. It involves catching bears and fitting them with radio collars. Usually, they would use a helicopter to get to the bears. But landing a chopper on the unstable summer ice would be hazardous, so the team uses an inflatable dinghy for the pursuit. Every effort is made to tranquilize the bear as quickly as possible to avoid exhausting it during a long chase. The bear hardly notices when it's been hit by the dart. Now, it's vitally important the researchers don't lose track of the bear among the maze of ice floes. They also want to make sure it's out of the water before it becomes sedated, so they gently try and head it back onto the ice. As soon as the bear is safely down, the team can move in. Expedition leader Thor Larson checks that it's really unconscious. There's no percentage in taking chances with polar bears. With the bear safely darted, the ship can move in closer. It's going to be hoisted on board ship. Before scientific checks are carried out, it's moved gently into a specially constructed cage on the deck. Thor Larson is preparing to fit a shoulder harness onto the bear. This has been designed to carry a collar containing a battery-operated satellite transmitter. With the harness and collar in place, the bear is left quietly to let the tranquilizer wear off. Despite its unusual surroundings, it's remarkably calm and even accepts a drink of water. The bear will stay in the cage for 24 hours. That gives the researchers time to make absolutely sure the collar is fitted properly and will not impede the bear's movements. But they were happy to note it didn't even seem to notice the strange apparatus. By the following morning, the bear is fully recovered and very keen to get back onto the ice. The jumping action is the same one it uses to break the ice when hunting for seals. The bear will wear its collar for a year. Then the harness is designed to break and fall off. In the meantime, it will transmit signals which are bounced by satellite to a receiver in France and then relayed to the Institute's computers in Oslo. The satellite tracking of polar bears is still in its infancy, but if successful, it will enable their movements to be studied across hundreds of miles of Arctic wastes. Not all polar bears live in the high Arctic. A resident population inhabits Hudson Bay in Canada. And although this is not a typical environment for the bears, scientists find it is a convenient place to study them at close range. During the summer months, as the ice melts offshore, the bears are forced to move onto the land. There are no more seals to eat now, but like all bears, they're omnivorous, so they manage to make do with an occasional meal of birds, small mammals, roots, and bulbs. Fights break out, probably triggered by boredom as much as anything. This is only mock fighting, a test of strength. Even so, polar bears are so strong, there's always a chance of serious injury. During the mating season in spring, males engage in far more serious battles over females. While they're forced to remain on dry land, living away from the cleansing effects of ice and water, the bears' coats become heavily soiled. But with the return of winter conditions, they'll soon whiten up again. During these months of enforced inactivity, the young cubs often find themselves with nothing to do. Like youngsters everywhere, they may on occasion invent games to occupy their time. Appropriately, this bored Hudson Bay cub has come up with his own version of Canada's national sport, ice hockey.